Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of having privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together, there's no stopping you. I'm Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. I've got a great entrepreneurial story today. It involves the founder of a company named Leap Hospitality. As far as what Leap does, they offer industry-leading support for businesses that take hospitality to heart. Founded in 2006 with a focus on restaurants and bars, but today it's so much more. It's a range of products serving hotels, casinos, retail stores, offices, education, health facilities, and really a cool way that their founder got here. Their founder is Pat Phelan. He's an entrepreneur, visionary, and strategic thinker in the world of hospitality. He has raised more than $100 million in private equity for various hospitality projects, supplied and manufactured more than $50 million in hospitality furniture, and recruited hundreds of talented people for some of the top food and beverage brands. Pat was named as one of the National Restaurant News 2018 Top 75 Power CEOs in Hospitality. Leap was recently named over and over again Kansas City's top 100 growing companies in 2018, 19, and 20 by Ingram's Magazine. And one of the things that I love about the story, this is so often true with entrepreneurs, is that it wasn't laid out like this. It usually is not. The path, the journey takes all kinds of twists and turns. And I know that as I bring in Pat right now, I could say, is this what you were planning growing up in Peoria? And I'm pretty sure that the answer is no to some extent, if not to a greater extent. Pat, how are you? And am I right there?
I am great, Joel. You are exactly right. No, I didn't wake up at a 10-year-old young boy in Peoria thinking I want to sell restaurant furniture and get involved in the executive search business. But that's where I ended up after I initially purchased the company.
I knew it was a bit rhetorical. Most people growing up, outside of saying, hey, I want to be the next home run champion, or I want to hit the game-winning shot, or be on stage, or be a firefighter, most people end up going some different route. I mean, we have crazy dreams as kids. I happen to have the one that led to me doing exactly this, but I still had no idea how it would turn out. Point is that we never really know what the journey is, but your journey is really one with a lot of twists and turns and winding roads. And before we get there, I just want you to fill in some of the blanks about your company and Leap Hospitality that I missed in the simple open there.
That was a great open. I started about 15 years ago. We'll get into the details of how I went about doing that. But we offer and distribute restaurant furniture, bar furniture, hotel furniture across the country to a lot of major brands across the United States. And we've gone international as well. And then about 5 years ago, we started an executive search company focusing on hospitality as well, mainly C-suite type of positions, all the way down to a district manager if we need to, based on the need. And then just recently, we started another service assisting with installation and warehouse in the hotel and casino industries.
I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, along with the great recommendation of Mike Meyer Music, who's been a guest before and a friend, you know him better than I do because he happens to be your brother-in-law, and he had been telling me for years, this, you really should have my brother-in-law on. It's a really incredible story. And I said, you're just trying to pump up your family member. No, I didn't say that because I trust Mike. Mike's a great guy, but I mean, shoot, you married his sister. But I think that the journey that you took is one that a lot of people can relate to, because you found yourself at a corporate job, stuck behind a cubicle. And I want to be careful how I say that, because some people are very comfortable in that spot, but there are a lot of others that aren't. I never worked a job like that. I couldn't envision myself doing it. But a lot of people do. A lot are happy, and a lot are saying this isn't for me. And you decided to do something different. What was that like? How tough of a decision was it? And how did you kind of get the courage to do it?
Yeah, good question. So at the time I worked in corporate America at Sprint, PCS at the time, working at Cube Farm, is what I like to call it, in finance. And there was just something about it that I felt like I wasn't added value to the company. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel that way. I was just a cog in the wheel and didn't understand really what I was doing provided to the bottom line or top line of the company itself. So I would actually spend a lot of time at home analyzing businesses, which is weird, right? My wife always wondered why I would stay up late at night and crank through spreadsheets and look at different businesses for sale. I did not want to start a business from scratch just because I felt like I needed the cash flow to support myself and my family at the time. So going the acquisition route is the route I wanted to go. Boy, Joel, I probably went through hundreds of different businesses. There always a big red flag associated with it. And then through that process, I stumbled upon a small little company. It happened to be in Lenexa, Kansas, called Fast Food Equipment Systems, and they focus in the restaurant industry. My background is finance and business development, so I felt pretty comfortable with growing the business, expanding the business. Didn't know anything about the industry at all. And push came to shove. It came down to kind of my happiness and wanting to do something that made a difference that was my own. That was really important to me. And I came from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad started his own company. My grandfather had his own company for a while as well. And I saw the benefits associated with it, as well as my in-laws. Like you said, Meyer Music, they started theirs. And so I consulted with a lot of different people that had done it. And at that time, I think I was 34-ish years old. And if I wasn't going to do it then, I was never going to do it. I didn't want to get stuck. And a lot of times you get this false sense of security working in corporate America. They could let you go anytime, right? It's a shrewd world. And I wanted to have control my own fate. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what was inside me. And I didn't realize that until I did it.
Yeah, mine's very different, but just a little similar in the sense that I didn't have the foresight that you did. I also happened to love what I was doing. I had no desire to get out of television. Thankfully, to this point, knock on wood, I haven't gotten out of television. But I also wanted to do something else. And, I have my off seasons. And so the speaking business was born, and then the podcast. And now I know that, if and whenever that time ends in television, I have something else. So it was a little bit different the way you went about it. But it's still that same entrepreneurial spirit. I use the word journey a lot because I think we all, no matter what we do, have a journey, but there's just something different about that entrepreneurial journey in my mind, going through it at a much smaller level. I mean, it's just my company at this point, but you still experience the highs, the lows, the hots, the colds, and all of that you don't see in the corporate world. Well, I think some of the high level executives would tell you they see it every single day, but there is something about that entrepreneurial journey, isn't there?
No doubt. And the financial pressures is a lot of it. And then we had talked before about, you're doing everything yourself. You're grinding through it. You're not only the marketing executive, you're the IT executive, you're the CFO, you're doing all those functions while keeping the business afloat, moving forward. And you have to be a visionary and think 2 steps ahead of everybody else. But that's what kind of drives you and wanting you to create something from scratch. And say it's your own and leave a legacy a little bit, I think are all important aspects of why I did it. And it's the thrill associated with it, but also I think the balance and having some flexibility in your day-to-day life was really important to me too, versus going in and punching a clock 8 to 5. I'm a hard worker. I wanted to work when I wanted to work. I probably work more than that today. But that was fine with me. If I want to take off in the afternoon and go play 18 holes of golf, I should be able to do that. So it comes back to a lifestyle. And I actually preach that a lot when we do onboarding with new potential employees of Leap Hospitality. This is not a job. This is a lifestyle. And I want to have that as part of our culture. And I think that's where a lot of companies are going anyway today.
Oh, they for sure are. I mean, you hear the words culture a lot. I mean, shoot, I speak about it every day. Lifestyle, storytelling. We all have a story to tell. That's been going on since the beginning of time, by the way, but it's come to the forefront in the way that we talk about it. So could you have envisioned when you started this and you went down this path that it would result in this? I mean, was this the dream, or much, much, much bigger?
It's funny, when I bought the company, it was about $1.5 million back in 2006. I knew I would change the company, but I didn't know I had to change it so fast. I went through the financial crisis of 2008, which really put a lot of strain on the company itself about what we were going to do. And it really accelerated what I need to do as well, just because we lost a lot of our sales. I had to find other services, products, things of that nature. I had no idea I'd be in the furniture business when I started this company. We distributed ice machines. We distributed food equipment. We called on food equipment dealers. But you got to do what you got to do, right? You have a loan. I got two young girls at home, and I had to figure it out. And um, I found out that through my own process, I'm pretty good at figuring stuff out, right? And you have to adjust. And so I maintained the existing company while I expanded it, and that took about 2 years and a lot of grinding, sacrificing pay, salary, everything else that goes along with it for the love of it. I remember talking to some bankers through the process, and they said, Pat, a lot of people have given up by now. I don't even know why you keep doing what you're doing. And it was a little blind faith, probably being naive through the process as well. But the desire to be on my own superseded any financial things that I wanted. I knew if I did it right, the finances would come. And that's what happened over time.
I think there's something, and I'm curious your take on it, because your standing as a successful entrepreneur is different in 2020 than it was in 2006. So you are less naive at this point. You're much more established. But having gone through the crisis in 2008, and what you just described to me in a nutshell is advice that I got back last year, last April, of one word, I guess two words: just survive. And that's easier said than done. Some of us have different means than others, but there's still something about surviving. You get thrown in the deep end, and you got to do whatever you can to tread water and survive. So, were there lessons you took from '08 that helped you in 20? Were there similarities, differences?
Oh, no doubt. In '08, I was had anxiety attacks. I was panicked. We had an SBA loan out at the time, which wasn't huge, but it was enough that would have set us back financially. And I remember sitting there going, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And had to create something from absolutely nothing to what you just said, just survive, just show up right every day and it'll work itself out. And I had that mindset. So then you move forward to 2020 and the anxiety wasn't there. I knew it'd work itself out. Just because it's a small snapshot in time doesn't mean it's permanent. And having that maturity and understanding some of that and seeing it through made a huge difference this year. And I actually enjoyed some of the time during COVID, quite honestly. We got a lot of great family time. Our sales weren't that off. And I know that it's just going to take a little bit more grinding and hard work to see it through. And we feel like there's going to be a big renaissance in the hospitality industry come 2022, probably. It's a real inexpensive industry to get into. There's going to be a lot of open space, a lot of restaurants closed, and they'll reopen at some point. So we're actually pretty bullish about where we're going forward. But my mental state was so different than it was in 2008. I was much more calm and just understanding that it just takes time sometimes to see things through.
You have that big picture in you now. I think some people, certainly in the hospitality industry and those that are working in the service industry, would say, well, easy for you to say where you're at. They don't necessarily understand the path that you took. They're the ones that are going home and saying, I got to go find another profession because I can't find work at the restaurant, at the bar, or whatever it is. But what I'm hearing from you, and I have the same belief without your expertise, is big picture thinking, long term. This is all going to work itself out and it's going to be okay. What is it that makes you believe that?
Belief in myself and my team and understand the path. And a lot of it, I'm pretty financial based. So we want to make sure we've got enough cushion to see us through it. And everybody says you have to operate in the margins and make sure you have that. So when you have a setback for 3-4 months, it doesn't set you back completely. So we're pretty conservative with our finances. We're not a big company. We all kind of work it ourselves. And, I could hire another staff of 4 or 5 people if I wanted to and be on the golf course every day. But that's not me. I love being in the mix and deal making, things of that nature. But because of that, I'm able, if we had a slow 4 or 5 months like we did last year, I don't have to hit the panic button. And the team that we've assembled all feel that way as well. I think that's real important. The financial pressure sometimes pushes people in the wrong direction, and you got to have some type of cushion and savings to get you through the hard times.
I want to hit some of the big moments in your career in a little bit because it involves some projects like Ballpark Village in St. Louis and Texas Live and some of these places here in Kansas City, down at Power and Light, McFadden. So, but I don't want to steal any of your thunder too, because I don't know what the big home run or any of that is, because there have been a lot of them. So let me jump in first with the baseball themed questions, brought to you by Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissickco.com. In this career now, what has been the biggest home run, Pat?
Well, you alluded to one, and I'm not going to pick that. I mean, one, the initial conversation I had with the Cordish company when I was back, it was back in 2008 when I was struggling, trying to figure out our business model and adjusting, and they happened to answer the call, and we met, and they've been a great client of ours. They've been very loyal, and I was able to build a brand around what we've done for them. So you call that a pretty big home run. But what I've seen since we've evolved as a company, the extra service I added about 5 or 6 years ago with the recruiting service really changed the dynamic of our company. And we got involved a lot more in the private equity side of our industry, where a lot of the money is driven and decisions are made, and hiring an individual, Chris Wonder, who took that service and took my vision and ran with it, and has really blown up that side of the business. It's probably been the biggest home run I've had in investing in the right person with the dream and vision I had. It's just been really cool to watch. We're just scratching the surface on that, but it's to a point that business, Joel, is, from a margin perspective, is making just as much money as the furnishing business. It's exploded that big for us.
Well, and that's the beauty of this too, right? Of being nimble and not having an exact set plan in place, which to me is interesting, because you sound to me like a guy that is very set in terms of the way you go about the finances, and I don't want to say careful, but you know that world. It sounds to me like you're very calculated with what you do with the money, yet you see an opportunity. Like, again, you didn't start this thinking, hey, I'm gonna spawn off into recruiting. But yet here it is, the opportunity presented itself, and you took it and ran with it.
Focus on the business model a lot, making sure it fits me as a person, and making sure I can get into it, we can execute it. The barriers to entry are fairly small, and it comes down to us treating people correctly, doing what we say we're going to do, and follow up. You do all those things, people appreciate it. It takes time to build clients that accept it. And then we continue to get repeat business, and that's what it's all about. And it starts building upon itself over time. But you're right. I mean, I'm careful, I'm cautious, but once I see something I want to do, we go, and you kind of have to throw the finances and the income statement projections into the trash, because they don't mean a whole lot. They can guide you. You just got to make sure you've got enough to get to where you need to go, and trust in yourself, and evaluate that plan probably every 3 or 4 months to make sure you're on target. If you're not, what do you have to adjust and pivot to get there?
It's an interesting dichotomy, but one that I think has worked out. It sounds to me like you have the right balance. That doesn't mean you get it right every single time either, which is my segue into the swing and miss. I say it over and over again, the successful ones swing and miss a lot, and that's okay. So what's the biggest swing and miss you've taken, and what did you learn from it?
Well, ironically, I'd say almost purchasing the original business. I got in just because I wanted out of corporate America, and I had cold feet initially when we bought it. I remember driving down to Lake of the Ozarks, and I decided not to buy the company, and we stopped at a grocery store in Lebanon, Missouri, and I took a call from the business broker, and he was trying to convince me otherwise. I got off the phone, and Mitzi, who's my wife, said, if you're not, you need to do this for yourself, and if you fail, that's okay. And that was my release to go do it. But then I got into it, Joel. It was a mess. I mean, almost within 2 months, I knew, why did I buy this business? It doesn't fit me real well. I don't even want to go into work. And you had all that anxiety and that feeling. But I'm a type of person, I'll do what I say I'm going to do. And I said, no, I've committed to this. I'm not going to fail at it. And it pushed me to where I'm at today. But holy cow, most people would have got into that thing. If you would have seen the old company and the business and what I had to deal with, and we were selling ice machine parts, and I had a legacy staff that one lady, I think she was like 85 years old, working inside there, had no clue what she was doing. She was hard of hearing, all these little things you're dealt with. And I had left this nice cushy job over at the Sprint campus. And I thought, what the heck did I do to myself? And it's all worked itself out. But would I do it again? I don't know, but it goes back to probably being really naive and just, the big picture drove the decision versus the actual business itself.
Last baseball themed question is small ball. The book is Small Ball, Big Results, and you can certainly get that on Amazon or from my website or numerous local stores. The little things that add up to the big things. What does small ball mean to you?
Boy, everything for us, for a small business, is business development, and you can get really caught up in the big accounts and the big picture. And what if we got this client on board? Boy, it changed our life. And I tend to like the smaller companies, the ones that are up and coming, the ones I can build relationships with. But what that takes is a lot of discipline every single day to get up, talk to the right people, make the right phone calls, connect with the right people. There isn't a magic pill in growing a business, right? And just every day coming to the office. At one point, Joel, I actually brought this business into my home, and we all worked remotely, and I couldn't do it. 2 or 3 months in, I was depressed. I needed a place to go, and it forced me to be a lot more productive. So we built it back up, and to have a physical office made a big difference for me, and it just pushed me that every day I got something I have to do, right? And when you do that and you don't think that there's this magic pill and change, I think it makes a big difference. And just having a lot of smaller accounts sometimes is just as good as having the bigger accounts, quite honestly. And they're better margin too in a lot of cases.
And you give them a little bit of attention, do things the right way. It's really well received too, isn't it?
Totally. And it's a lot more rewarding. And guess what? When you do that, the big guys start calling you, and that happens too. And it has happened to us. People talk, and people leave these smaller companies and go work for bigger companies, and they'll call you because they really appreciated the personal attention that we give them.
Speaking of the bigger companies, things really started taking off. You mentioned and you alluded to cold calling Cordish, I believe, 10, 11 years ago at this point. That conversation did not go the way you expected it in terms of what they were looking for, did it?
Did not. So that was an interesting cold call, and it was really a lot. This is before really the internet. I'd have a yellow pages, or I'd read in the Kansas City Star what's going on in the industry, and I knew I was involved in the restaurant industry and had to talk to people that were involved and notice, they're building this huge power and light district. Didn't know really much about it other than that, but noticed who the developer was and picked up the phone and called several people within that organization. And I'll never forget, it was like the day before my birthday, like you said, 10 or 12 years ago, as they're building power and light. And this guy, Gary Darnell, calls me and says, "Is Gary Darnell, what'd you need?" And he did all the talking. He took me down a path, said, "We need help with furniture. We're a big developer, but we're small enough, and we're a project by project based company like most developers are. Can you do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that. You're right. If it paid, I'd do it at the time." And he said, "Well, you got to meet the big wigs in a couple of days downtown Kansas City. You're a Kansas City guy. That'll be important to them as they invest in the city." So literally, I didn't know how I was going to sell myself. I went to Kinko's, or I went on Publisher and created a brochure. Went to Kinko's, had one printed that night, took it up to the meeting. The meeting went extremely well. And their initial feedback was I was too polished, that they were looking for a little bit smaller company to manage. And I had to convince them, no, I'm a pretty small company. You can kick me around if you need to. And I think they enjoyed that. And we were really hands-on too, which made a big difference to them. And today they still have that mentality. They like working with smaller companies that have to grind and hustle, and it means a lot to them. And they select their vendors that way. And it, obviously the rest is history, but I had to work at it. It wasn't given to me. I mean, I had to show up and do things probably today I wouldn't do anymore. But I knew the big picture, and having that project and multiple projects in our portfolio was a bigger deal to me than just the project itself.
That kind of opened the door though for that element of your business with furniture. Right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be in it today if I didn't make that decision. That's right.
Okay, 4 final questions as we round the bases. The first one, I want to get back to something that we talked about, the art of cold calling. And I've brought this up many, many times, whether it be in my speeches or on this podcast, in my book too. I do not like cold calling. And I very openly say that because I think most people don't. For those that are good at it, you got something that most of us don't have. But cold calling got me into television. when you're desperate enough, you find a way. If it matters enough, you will find a way, and you'll put those fears aside. What's the secret? What was the secret, or still at this point? What's the secret to cold calling for you?
Today I don't do it as much as I used to. I got good at it because I was in an internship in college that required me to do it. And I understand the art really was to create the connection with the individual right out of the gate, whether you're asking about them, just like in any conversation, what's going on in your world. It's hard to get somebody on the phone today. So I think today's world's a little bit different than it used to be. But talk to me like the person's your neighbor, and versus having a sales pitch out of the gate. Respect their time. If they don't have time right now, can we put something on the calendar, make it short and sweet, 10, 15 minutes, see if there's an opportunity and reschedule. A lot of times I get people that cold call me and they don't get that. They're right into sales pitch mode. And unfortunately I hang up on them just because I don't have time to deal with it. But people that are really good say, "Hey, Pat, what's going on?" And they're engaging, and we're having a conversation. And they say, "I just need 5 minutes. Is that okay?" And I said, "No." "Well, can we put it on the calendar? What do you want?" If there's a need or desire, I'll put it on the calendar and talk to them. But I think that's the first. Don't try to sell somebody on the first call, right? That's probably the biggest lesson you have to learn, and have patience with it.
When I get the LinkedIn connection, I try to say yes to most of them, and it immediately comes, whether automated or not, with a message. And almost every time that message is going to be, "Let's book a call." And I'm like, about what? We just met, or I could help you with your podcast music. Have you listened to my podcast music yet? I could help you with your whatever. And it's like, wait, you don't even know. So some of those red flags, whether it be digitally or on a phone call, to me, immediately, it's the delete button, it's the hang up button, it's whatever, because they're not putting any time into the relationship. Everybody's trying to get to the end before going through again the journey. Second question for you. We'll have a little bit of fun with this. I don't know how many people are staying up late at night, at least back when you were doing it, or now for that matter, that were analyzing other businesses. And it sounds like you were enjoying it. And obviously ended up leading you to where you are. But is that something that's always been a part of you? Did you actually enjoy those late nights?
Yeah, I actually did. I find business fascinating, and I find different business models fascinating, and understanding how you make money and the importance associated with it, and looking for improvement a lot of times. I was looking for something a little screwed up, honestly, just because I don't want something too good, because I'd probably screw it up. So something that needed a little bit more fixing was something that I wanted, that there's opportunity that maybe that they're not capitalizing on. All those elements I find fascinating to this day. I read a lot of business improvement, personal improvement books, things like that. I probably don't do it as much as I used to, but I still find it very fascinating. And it's just stories like mine and others really drive me and push me to keep moving forward.
All right, third question as we round the bases. This will truly be the lighthearted one, and I'm always looking for something unique or different or eye-opening, and this is what I saw in the exchanges. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but is there something about Jimmy Buffett and Key West in your history?
There is. So I think this was freshman year after college. In high school, we were big Parrot heads for whatever reason. We went to a lot of Jimmy Buffett concerts. You're a Wisconsin guy, right? Alpine Valley was one.
Oh yeah.
Indianapolis, Chicago, St. Louis, more regional around the Midwest. And after our freshman year, a buddy of mine said, "Let's go down to Key West just to see where Jimmy came from and started and all that stuff." So we drove down there, hung out at a local dive bar on fake IDs, drinking, having a good time, and met this guy at the bar who was an exterminator. And I'm sure we were telling war stories that weren't true and everything else. And he had asked why we came down. We told him, and he had said, someone introduced me to somebody I really admired. It was Randy or Macho Man Savage, the wrestler. And that was a big deal to him. That tells you who we were dealing with. And I want to introduce you to Jimmy Buffett. And we're like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" So we wake up the next day and thought, did that just happen? Yeah, that's not really going to happen. So we were there for 3 or 4 more days. We ran into the guy again on Duval Street. He said, you two are the guys that I met. Tomorrow, I'm going to pick you up in your parking lot. What hotel are you at?" And I'm thinking, is this guy a mass murderer, a serial killer? What's going to go on? Sure enough, he showed up. We put these little jumpsuits on, exterminating jumpsuits, show up at Jimmy Buffett's house. He was not there that day.
Mm.
He was in New York for some reason, but the Coral Reefer band, which is in the house next door to his, was there. We had to knock on that door to get the key. We walk into his house where he just let us it's a real small house in Key West. We just walked around his house while he exterminated. He told us a story that the last time he was there, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell were staying there and scared him as he was exterminating. And we walk out and met his manager. He asked who we were and why we were there. And he said, "These are my two nephews that are interning for me for the summer." We stole a couple pieces of mail out of his mailbox and went away. So it was a pretty wild circumstance.
Jimmy, if you're watching, this really didn't happen. Don't worry about it. It wasn't anything important, but a heck of a story for sure. All right, we'll end on a more serious note. And you are, Pat, the true entrepreneurial success story. There are a lot of them out there. They're almost always inspirational because we all know it takes so much. It takes all that late night effort that you talked about. It takes some guts, taking some chances, potentially dealing with failure, a lot of failure along the way, and some luck too along the way of meeting the right people. What advice do you give to young or older, for that matter, entrepreneurs as they try to find similar type of success or any kind of success?
Man, I say stick with it. I think people give up way too soon. Like I said, that those meetings I had with bankers, and they had said, "Why are you still doing this?" I mean, it's been a grind, and we had to make sure that we could make it as a family based on the income that I had at the time, which is real important in my mind. But if you've got the finances, you've got the margin, stick with it. And if it's not working, don't be afraid to pivot. I went from we were selling restaurant equipment all the way to furnishings to recruiting, and you have to have a open mind to make the adjustment while you're maintaining your existing business. And just because it's not working today doesn't mean it's going to not work in the future. But make the right tweaks, adjust it, manage it, and grind through it. I think way too many people are afraid to cross the line. And once you cross it, you'll never go back. It's been a fantastic ride so far.
It has, with I know much more to come. Is there anything you may not know, may not be able to say, but are there more pivots coming?
Oh yeah, there always are. I was thinking about that today. The pivoting never ends, and once you accept it, you kind of fuels you, and you kind of laugh at it, and you move forward. And we had to pivot through COVID and make the adjustments that we need to make. And granted, we were a lot more, I guess, calm about the situation it would have been back in 2008, like we had talked about. But this hotel warehouse install is a little bit of a pivot. It's an additional service. So it's like we're starting a new company from scratch there. And that's what's driving me every day. We're creating a software package to manage it, things of that nature, to continue to grow the company. And why am I doing it? I think it's, a lot of it is just the unknown and being creative and proving to yourself that you can do something and create from scratch.
Well, I know that it'll always be an adventure in the best of ways. And I just wanted to, one, say congrats on all the success. And two, thanks for spending all of the time. People can find out more about Pat's company at Leap Hospitality, if I could speak, leaphospitality.com. Pat, thanks again for spending all the time today.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right. Great to be able to visit with Pat Phelan. And real quick shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissa Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they demand and frankly are worthy of more than the status quo and need a local partner who understands their business. So for Pat Phelan, I'm Joel Goldberg. You can reach me at joelgoldbergmedia.com for more information about my business or the book. Please reach out and hope to catch you next time on Rounding the Bases.